Mayank is experienced and accomplished professional looking to leverage an extensive background of 10 plus years in project and operation management. He is advising and consulting clients on data privacy and associated regulations including GDPR, GLBA, CCPA, HIPAA, SOX, FISMA, FERPA, etc. He has experience in data privacy and security audits and privacy risk assessment. Additionally, he is having a rich experience in matters pertaining to e-discovery, client management, risk and compliance management, sanctions and screening KYC, due diligence, A, B and C fraud, operational risk, regulatory compliance. Over to you, sir.
Thanks for that introduction, first of all. So, post-lunch session, never easy, I understand. I could have sang a song for you guys, but और सो जाओगे आप लोग. So, not a good idea. So yeah, hello everyone, and thanks for having me here, first of all. I'm feeling honored and privileged to speak in front of such an astute audience, and I really hope and believe that you all are working wonderfully well in your respective professions. I will also like to thank Gain Skills for organizing such events, because I totally believe such events provide us with, right kind of platform where the professionals like us, we come, we interact, we share our ideas, open up our minds. So that's very, very much required, I think, in all our professions. So thank you for that. And as you already know, my name is Mayank Sharma. I am DPO at CRISIL India Private Limited. And to give you more information about CRISIL, CRISIL is the leading rating agencies within India. We also have our business spread across the world, and we are into market intelligence and analytics. We also do some global research and risk analysis. We are into global benchmarking as well. So yeah, and because of that, we have to comply with lots and lots of, regulations across the world, and that's the hard part of it. You all will agree, right? We are seeing a number of compliances, regulatory requirement these days. Many of our panelists, they were talking about increased compliances and regulatory requirements. So yes, every company these days, majorly the regulated entities, they have to do a lot of compliances. So moving ahead, I know it's almost afternoon, and we have already heard some of very good and very interesting sessions, mainly on the data security. I think it's the right time. Now we should be diving into this crucial intersection that affects every organization. How privacy regulation aligns with cybersecurity to ensure compliance, and most importantly, protect our data. So today we are at a point where regulatory compliance, it's not just about avoiding penalties, right? If 10 years down the line, or say 8 to 7 years down the line, someone would have asked, why are you complying with these regulations? People would have said, and I would have also said that to avoid the hefty penalties that they pose. But no, not today. I think today, and if someone asks me that, Mayank, what are the top, how should I put it up? What is the top motivating parameter which you think you can achieve via complying to any regulation? I would place trust at the top. Because I feel, and with trust, I'm not talking only about the customer trust. Trust could be when any individual, for that matter, provides their personal data to a company or an organization, right? They are placing some amount of trust in that organization and giving them their sensitive personal information. And obviously, client and the customers who are providing their information to, say, third-party vendors, or we call in the privacy domain as data processors. So that trust is very important. And I would say achieving regulatory compliance, trust is something which should be placed at the top by every company and every organization, as per my belief. And these two tools, which is data privacy, and data security, they are, I think, the guiding force today who are, responsible for achieving and maintaining that trust within any organization today. So that will be the focus of this discussion today, and we are going to, discuss about how these two different departments, namely data privacy and data security, they are navigating and intersecting with each other. So these two departments, as I said, that earlier they were considered as a very, very distinct departments, right? So data security was not considered or treated similar to the data privacy earlier. But over the period of time, these two topics have woven together in such a manner that now it is completely inseparable. And over the period of time with these regulations, nowadays we are seeing these regulations, they are, every day we are coming across different regulation. So these regulations, I think they have cemented these two topics together. And now this compliance triad, which is namely the physical security, information security, and data privacy, they have become the most important compliance parameter for every organization. Whenever you talk about any organization and try to discuss what are the important parameters you consider while trying to achieve any compliance, so people will definitely think about how are their information security practices, how are their data privacy security practices, how is their physical security practices, and these have become inseparable concept these days. And at my job as well, on a daily basis, I talk to a lot of information security practitioners as well, and people do come to me, and there are certain discussions around how to, why are we required to comply to these privacy regulations? And I have been into some discussions where people have almost denied to comply to privacy regulation, and that actually little breaks my heart, because we need to understand that even though data privacy and security, we understand that these two are referring to different aspect of any company or organization. For example, privacy, it focuses on how the personal data of an organization should be processed, and giving the more control to people about their data, right? Giving their, identifying and honing their fundamental rights of privacy. On the other side, if you talk about information security, it is about restricting the unauthorized access of data, right? But now I'll tweak that statement a bit and think about when we say information security is restricting the unauthorized access to personal data. Now these two topics will intertwine so much that it will, you cannot think about data security without data privacy. And this is where these two topics have reached now. And there are debates that with security, it is also possible that sometimes it is affecting data privacy, because at times we need to put in certain security controls which requires a lot of biometrics data, which requires lots and lots of data. So that can go against the concept of privacy as well. But if you also think around the line on how data security is currently used to preserve the data privacy of any individual or any organization, you will realize that these topics now cannot be read or understood without understanding or without complementing with each other. Okay, so now moving ahead, because we have spoken about this intersection of these two topics, let's also try to understand. We have spoken about privacy regulations. So what are the actual requirements of these privacy regulations? So this data protection at the outset, it requires a holistic approach to system design that incorporates the combination of three things: legal, administrative, and technical safeguard. So if you think about data privacy in your organization, you will need to have people who are sitting in the privacy legal team, for example, right, who will review the regulatory requirements, the regulation. Then there will be an administrative team who will be actually putting down that findings into play. And then thirdly is the most important pillar these days, which is the technical team, because whatever requirements you take in data privacy these days, silo, if you take in silo, regulatory or legal team, they cannot take it ahead without the help of data security teams. So, but I always, whenever I go into these discussions, I always tell to my members or whoever I'm working with that although there are very fancy technologies who are in the market and obviously we can hone them, but always stick to basics whenever you are trying to implement a privacy program or trying to understand the privacy. And if you will, also, and I'm sure that all of you must be aware about the privacy regulations, which is, coming across, and we have around 120 countries who have already delivered or implemented the privacy regulations in their countries. So we have one thing which you will see in common in all these privacy regulation is the privacy principles that they use. I agree that there will be certain requirements that could differ from country to country, sector to sector, or for that matter, we have seen different states within United States, coming up with different privacy laws. But one thing in common that you will realize is that the basic privacy principles remains the same. And let's spend some time on what are these basic privacy principles, which in my opinion, any organization will implement. They will at least be able to have the baseline control of their privacy program. So the first thing we need to understand is that whenever we are processing the personal data should be processed in a lawful, fair manner, and it should be done transparently. So by lawful, what I mean is that suppose you are processing a personal data of say 100 individuals. So you need to understand that you have certain legal basis which you need to verify before processing data of those 100 people. And what are these is that GDPR and all those regulations which we have gives you certain list of legal basis, namely if you have the consent of the individual, and consent also have a requirement of for being a valid consent, you need to look at lots and lots of parameters, like it should be concise, it should be informed, you cannot have a vague and an ambiguous consent. So you have to see a lot of things when you are basing your processing activity or your processing of personal data on basis of consent. Then other basis you can see is that, and in consent I also want to highlight that you must have seen opt-in and opt-out requirements, right? There are certain regulation who advocates opt-in model. There are certain regulations who advocates opt-out model. What are these? Opt-in model is something where a regulation is fairly strict, like for example GDPR and other regulation. So they actually, they ask the people or the companies that whenever you are asking for that consent, you have to mark or keep the person as opted out. And the person needs to take a necessary action in order to give their consent. But then opt-out model is something where it is a bit more flexible, like in United States, we have seen that they generally come up with the opt-out model where by default you can choose the person as an opted in, but then obviously you have to give him a choice to opt out. Other legal bases are, you can base on if it is, say, required for the legal, on the vital interest of the data subject, or you have a legal obligation, you need to perform a contract. And the most important is, and the popular one is the legitimate interest when people are basing. But for that legitimate interest, I would, like to put more, force on the thing that you need to understand that you are not allowed by the privacy regulation to override the fundamental right of privacy to the individual whenever as a company you are choosing that legal basis. So people, I've seen been into a discussion where people, and the functions mainly, they say that this is in the legitimate interest of our organization. However, we forget to conduct a legitimate interest balancing test to understand that in case if we are not overriding the fundamental right of privacy of those data subjects by conducting that processing activity. So yeah, so these are the few legal bases which we need to understand. The other things that principles we can understand is data minimization. Just process minimum data whenever you are trying to process minimum required data for the purpose. Purpose limitation, obviously, where in case if you are processing a data for purpose A, you cannot process it without the consent or requirements for any unrelated purpose. If the purpose is well connected and valid enough to be used, a different purpose, that's the test the companies need to know. But if, for example, you're taking my consent for, say, booking a hotel, you cannot sell that data, say, to airline industry for advertise for their tickets. That's an unrelated purpose, and you have to take a fresh consent or a fresh legal basis. So storage limitation, please store your data within the organization for the minimum period required, and you require it for the definite purposes. Then a very important, because we have all the CISOs and technical peoples in here, we have the principle of integrity and confidentiality, which says that whenever you are processing the personal data, you need to ensure that it is processed in a manner which is secure enough. You cannot process your data without understanding the systems, how secure they are, and you cannot put the data into risk. So yeah, so these are the few legal bases which we can always look at. How much time we have, ma'am? We have some time, right? Okay. So the last piece I would like to discuss with you all is that we can always define the effective strategies for compliance. So I was talking about these basic principles which all the organization must ensure in order to process the personal data. But what we need to also ensure is that we can leverage out the technologies out there. There were people who were giving or talking about various good technologies and effective technologies. We can always use that for privacy as well. There are a lot of privacy enhancement technologies known as PETs where we can utilize. There are tools out there which are actually, helping the companies to automate their requirements around data subject access requests, or conducting the PIAs, DPIAs, or creating a data map out of there. There are people, and we have people or companies coming in here who can also help the organization to assist in their privacy requirements like data map and all. So we can always consider such obligations or effective strategies as well. Yeah, so that was it I wanted to include in the stipulated time. So thank you. There were a lot to cover, but we have a lack of time. So thank you so much, guys. That was it from my side. Thank you.
For the amazing session, and I would like to call upon stage Mr. Ajay Avle, CIO, Aquafarm Chemicals Private Limited, to do the honors.